Hello there. I wanted to share some thoughts with you on gait retraining. Huge part of practice for physiotherapists, particularly in the neurology and gerontology world. Something we spend a lot of time doing, teaching people how to walk again and how to improve their mobility over the longer term to support people with their rehab goals. So I wanted to share with you more some aspects of training principles and designing comprehensive rehab programs. So we think about walking, we often talk about the straight line aspects of walking and gait, which is probably overemphasized, but they're the things that are measured in terms of spatio-temporal aspects and kinetic and kinematic aspects of walking. And these certainly steal the limelight in relation to our understanding of walking. And we spend a lot of time talking about normal walking, but in our field, we're dealing with people who are adapting and walking in different ways. And we're thinking about things like gait ignition, and acceleration and steady state and rhythm and balance and deceleration and also the ability to stop. In addition to the straight line stuff, we've also got the agility things like standing and pivoting and turning both directions. And so these things become really important. And that also includes the ability to stand for long periods, that endurance to be able to functionally stand for things like standing in the kitchen. To support these specific aspects of gait retraining, we also add in adjunct therapies like movement-based training and balance training. We often throw in strength training, which particularly in relation to lower limbs and trunk and core. Cardiovascular fitness also needs to be built up to improve mobility. And also we often teach patients to facilitate new movements and new synergies which become important to add value to the ability for postural control and walking. But the important thing is that each of these adjunct therapies don't really change, and we wouldn't expect them to change the gait pattern themselves. So while they're important aspects of teaching people how to move, we have to start thinking about and questioning how much time do we invest in these in relation to also the time we spend actually practicing walking. And it's probably going to be a mixture of both of those things, but we certainly need to spend time walking. And research has also focused particularly on gait speed, because we know speed is a determinant of health status for many populations. We know that in patient populations like MS and stroke, it's also reflective of whether you are a community ambulant and able to get out of the house. So if you're training mobility, one of the things I like to do is to train different types of walking, different types of walks. So you may have a walk X where you're focusing on striding out, maybe getting a heel strike. Y might be a narrow base of support, and Z might be walking and being able to turn the head and gaze towards a certain direction. For each of these walks, you make lots of mistakes. There's lots of variability, and you practice them over time. And over time, you get better, not necessarily at the same rate, but you get better through doing these different kinds of walks. You might throw in some block practice of each walk or some random practice of each walk. But what we see over time is the variability becomes less, and each of these walking patterns actually improves over time. And we call this error-based learning because it's based on unconscious sensory prediction errors, feed-forward learning. It all happens mainly at an unconscious level. So this learning by doing becomes really important. There is, however, a really important and another type of learning, which is more cognitive and metacognitive processes about selecting different aspects of balance and walking for different scenarios. And this has become increasingly important when we think about populations like Parkinson's disease, for example, where we're training the ability to think and shift their thoughts and shift different modes of behavior and select the right kind of movement for the right situation. This is also paired with that if you do select the right movement and you achieve something, you gain some kind of reward, then this becomes what is known as reward-based learning, which ties in closely with retention of skills. So that's why often in physiotherapy we improve walking pattern, but it doesn't carry over into real life because we have to add in these other cognitive aspects and reward-based learning, I think, to make those changes for those patients. Over the longer term, we have to think about walking capacity and fitness. And often the fitness has to be in relation to actual walking. So riding on a bike or recumbent bike or walking on an elliptical trainer, it's not the same. Training specificity dictates that we'll probably have to really focus on the capacity to walk over longer distances. There's also the aspect of managing loads, particularly things that we have to consider in our neurological population, like autonomic function in terms of blood pressure, temperature regulation, and also heart rate variability that we see. We're also thinking about things like fatigue, both motor fatigue and cognitive aspects of fatigue. We're looking at managing things like osteoarthritis and tendinopathies, which are really common, adapting to orthoses or shoes, and also, managing these issues and these injuries over the long term. That's self-management, self-monitoring risk and behaviour. And along this journey, we're also setting milestones, setting personal goals for people to achieve. So that becomes important because we're starting to think about confidence and building in self-efficacy. From the beginning, we've done a good job there because we've focused on individual exercises to support their walking. We've given them choice in some of their activities, which is also tied in with achievement and reward. And that becomes a really important part of building in confidence. We've also taught our patients how to self-manage, manage their injuries, understand the things about load and not overdoing it and underdoing it. And we've also set specific personalised goals. So along the whole plan, right from the very beginning, you've been building in elements that are important for confidence and self-efficacy. And particularly in community rehab, we know that self-efficacy is probably the most important training principle with getting people to improve their mobility in real life. So if you set up a structure like that, I think you're doing a pretty good job in terms of using different types of learning, adding in aspects of specific training and movement-based training, reward-based learning, and in terms of error-based learning. Plus, you're building in capacity, fitness, and strength, and then considering all the aspects of self-management for patients as well. Just something to think about that I hopefully can, help you improve your practice in this area. Thanks for listening.